in just a second. And if you do have any questions or comments throughout this presentation, please type them into the chat feature and we will take some time to answer questions at the end of this meeting. We do have a brief presentation, so it should only be about 20 to 30 minutes. And if you have questions after that, please feel free to email me. My email is lbajalan@adcogov.org. And when you do type in questions in the chat feature, please include your name and your email address so we have your contact information as well. So this meeting number 1 is really an introduction to some of the code amendments that Adams County plans to pursue. This meeting is really to make you aware of the process, as at this time we do not have any drafts of the regulations. And we're planning to look at examples from other municipalities and evaluate how Adams County wants to pursue these amendments. And then the second public outreach meeting on July 27th, we should have redline drafts to present to you. So at a study session with the Board of County Commissioners on May 11th, staff was given the direction to implement the vision of our long-range plans by creating zoning overlays for the planned boundaries. The 4 plans that we are looking into include the Welby Subarea Plan, the Federal Boulevard Framework Plan, the TOD and Rail Station Area Planning Guidelines, which is applicable to the half-mile buffer from the 6 stations either within unincorporated Adams County or directly adjacent to, and where the half-mile buffer would capture properties within unincorporated Adams County. And then the Clear Creek Valley TOD plan. We were also given the direction to change the use by right allowances of outdoor storage in the Industrial 2 and Industrial 3 zone districts to create a mixed use zone district and add in tiny home village and safe parking regulations as a new use within the county's development standards. And then finally, to empower the comprehensive plan in the criteria of approval for land use cases. And many of these efforts are priorities to the Board of County Commissioners, and we were actually granted an implementation planner to help implement all of these proposed amendments. So staff will be adding compliance with the comprehensive plan as a criteria of approval to many of our land use cases. So currently the county is working on advancing Adams, which is an update to the 2012 Imagine Adams Comprehensive Plan that would provide a vision for development looking into 2040. And we are estimating that the adoption of this plan will be in early 2022. And compliance with this document will ensure that development is built out in line with the 2040 vision for Adams County. Adding this criteria of approval will also ensure that our long-range plans are being considered and development is compliant with their specific visions, as well as because many of our plans are adopted into the comprehensive plan. So the county will be pursuing code amendments to change the use by right allowances of outdoor storage in the Industrial 2 and Industrial 3 zone districts. So currently the I2 and I3 zone districts allow for accessory outdoor storage in excess of 100% of the building area by right, if it does not exceed 80% of the lot or 10 acres, whichever is less. If it does exceed that amount, a conditional use permit is currently required. The county would be reducing the thresholds of which use by right outdoor storage, both in percentage and acreage, would be allowed, and would be making it conditionally permitted rather than being prohibited. A conditional use permit is a formal land use case that does require 2 public hearings, the first with the Planning Commission, the second with the Board of County Commissioners. It requires that the use be compatible with the area. And with the adoption of these regulations, it would require compatibility with the comprehensive plan and applicable sub-area plans. And then a neighborhood meeting would also be required. We are not proposing changes to the I1 zone district at this time, as in 2019, we changed the I1 zone district to require a conditional use permit for accessory outdoor storage in excess of 25% and up to 100% of the building area. So we will also be creating a mixed use zone district. Currently, the county does not allow for mixed use by right, and we're looking to change that. In 2020, we added mixed use as a use within the development standards that required a conditional use permit. and was only conditionally allowed in our C5 zone district. With this effort, we would be creating dimensional standards for the zone district, such as minimum lot size, minimum lot width, and setbacks. We currently have performance standards for the use that would remain in place. And the creation of a mixed-use zone district was called for by the 2012 Imagine Adams Comprehensive Plan and many of our sub-area plans. So this helps to allow the visions of those plans to become a reality. So we were also given the direction to pursue adding in tiny home villages as a use in the development standards. While we do not have drafts at this moment, we plan to have the use as conditionally allowed in certain zone districts. Again, conditional use permits require 2 public hearings, one with the Planning Commission, one with the Board of County Commissioners. And in this process, we would define the terms tiny home and tiny home village. And we'll be looking at safety and other performance standards for the use as we work through this process. So similar to tiny home villages, we would be adding in safe parking as a use within our development standards. The use would most likely require a public hearing, neighborhood meeting, and a conceptual review meeting. In this process, we would define the term safe parking, establish the permitting type, and outline the applicable zone districts for the use. We will also be looking at safety and other performance standards for the use as we work through this process. For both tiny home villages and safe parking, we will be looking into how other municipalities are doing this and evaluating how Adams County wants to move ahead with these regulations. And we'll also be working closely with our community safety and well-being team to create the regulations. So finally, we'll be working on creating overlays for our long-range plans. Again, the overlay will be specific to the plan boundaries and not countywide. An overlay zone is a zoning district which is applied over one or more previously established zone districts. And this can add additional requirements and provide the opportunity for incentives in certain areas as well. And then the overlay is not a specific zone district in itself. So overlays are not a new tool within the county. We currently have several zoning overlays that we enforce throughout unincorporated Adams County. The aviation overlays include the airport influence zone, height and noise overlay, and then we have the Colorado Air and Spaceport noise overlay. These overlays aim to protect both property owners and airplane activity by requiring aeronautical studies to determine if the development could be a hazard to air navigation. Some of the overlays restrict the creation of new residential lots or prohibit occupied spaces altogether, depending on the proximity to DEN or Colorado Air and Spaceport. We also have the flammable gas overlay. It's applied to all properties within 1,000 feet from a historical landfill. This requires property owners to get Tri-County Health Department approval and mitigate the effects of any methane gas being released. And then finally, we have the mineral overlay and the natural resource conservation overlay. Both aim to protect environmentally sensitive areas and require a natural resource review if 1 acre or more will be disturbed with the development. So this meeting is specifically targeted to the Welby sub-area. So this plan was completed in 2014, and the Welby area is approximately 4 square miles and is generally located north of I-76, east of I-25, south of 88th Avenue, and west of the South Platte River. Welby currently contains a mix of uses that include single and multifamily residences, commercial businesses, agriculture, and industrial. This plan was put into place to help provide a vision for Welby to provide compatibility between the diverse uses as Welby grows, all while honoring the rich history of the area. The Welby Plan splits the sub-area into 3 separate areas that all have unique visions. In addition to the goals and policies that are outlined within the plan also calls for the county to develop regulations specifically designed for the Welby area, so that can be achieved through these overlays. So North Welby is shown in purple in this image. North Welby is primarily residential in character with limited commercial along Washington. This area does contain a portion of the half-mile buffer from the original Thornton 88 light rail station, and it also includes Rotella Park. The vision and future land use for this area is mostly urban residential and mixed-use neighborhood, which would allow for some mixed-use development, especially along major corridors. And then the urban residential does allow for higher density residential as well. And then the South Welby is shown in red in this image and consists of a mix of limited residential, industrial, and agricultural properties. This area has seen significant change in the past years, as many of the properties are changing from agricultural to industrial. So ensuring that the new development is compatible with what's existing in the area is key to this future vision of the South Welby. Having mostly a mixed use employment future land use, the vision for this area is mostly light industrial with some limited residential options where existing residential is established. And then finally, we have East Welby, which is shown in green on this image and consists of mostly underutilized agricultural and industrial lands. This area does contain a portion of the half-mile buffer from the original Thornton 88 light rail station and the Commerce City 72nd stations. East Welby is expected to see the most change and the most mixed use development. The future land use consists mostly of mixed use employment, urban residential, and mixed use neighborhood. So as previously mentioned, we are also looking into creating overlays for the TOD and rail station area planning guidelines, which would be applicable to the half-mile buffer from the light rail stations. So for Welby specifically, this would be the Commerce City 72nd station and the Thornton 88th light rail stations. Their half-mile buffer does affect properties within unincorporated Adams County. So the TOD and rail station area planning guidelines were adopted in 2007. And this document realizes that many stations were planned in or adjacent to unincorporated Adams County and aim to get ahead of the development by providing guidelines and policies for the core of the station areas. And for those of you that might not know what TOD stands for, it stands for Transit-Oriented Development. And this is a planning approach that calls for high density, mixed use business and residential neighborhood centers to be clustered around transit stations and corridors. The policies within this plan would help support the end vision of TOD in these half-mile buffers. So some of you may have received 2 letters from the county about public outreach meetings if your property is within the half-mile buffer of the light rail stations. And that is just saying that you are in Welby and you are in that half-mile buffer, which the TOD would apply to. So again, the county does not have outlines or drafts for the proposed overlays at this time. We are very early in the process and wanted to engage the public to ensure that all residents and property owners are aware of some of the county initiatives, as many individuals may not have been aware that their property was within these specific plan boundaries. And several cities and counties in Colorado currently use overlays to implement their long-range plans. So Adams County will be looking at other examples as we do create these code amendments. So a timeline for this code amendment process, we have our second public outreach meeting on July 27th. And then we have a countywide outreach meeting on July 29th. Staff does intend on going to the Board of County Commissioners and the Planning Commission for study sessions in August. And we hope to go to the Planning Commission for public hearing in September with final adoption by the Board of County Commissioners in October of 2021. So again, if you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to type in the chat and we can either allow you to unmute and ask your question, or we can read them off and answer them as well. If you do have any questions after this meeting, please feel free to email me. My email is lbajelon@adcogov.org. And then we encourage you to stay informed about the process. So we will update the website regularly throughout this process to ensure that you are aware of where we're at in the process. And the county has several code amendment initiatives moving forward, separate from the one we just presented on today. So the website does have them as well for you to look at and keep aware of that process. And then we encourage you to attend our second public outreach meeting on July 27th, and then the countywide update meeting on July 29th. So that's kind of my presentation today. We just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we are moving forward with these code amendments. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you do have.
All right, Layla, I think we have a couple in the chat. I can read them off if you would like, and then you can try to answer some of them. So the first would be, could you please define mixed use?
Yeah, so mixed use typically is first floor commercial with residential on second and higher stories. So that is the mixed use we are talking about within this plan, and the mixed use that we intend to move forward with.
All right, and then there's another question about 76th and Washington. Is this going to stay mostly residential? I'm not sure we can answer specific questions at this point. We're not planning on changing the uses by right at this point. So we're not planning on changing what's currently residential or future land use of residential into something different. So we won't be proposing that, but I don't know, Layla, did you have anything else to add to that one?
I do not have anything else to add to that, not knowing exactly which sub area that the 76th in Washington is in as well.
All right, when will a redlined copy be available? I know that we're going to start working on that here pretty shortly.
Yes, and we do intend to have redline drafts available by the second public outreach meeting. So that would be July 27th. We would have drafts to present to you.
All right, and then I think there's someone who's expressing concerns about potential gentrification. Is there a way that we'll be able to address that?
We can definitely take a look at that in the process. Again, we don't have anything drafts or outlines right now, but we can definitely take a look at that when we do create these overlays.
All right, and we're definitely getting a lot of email addresses, so we'll make sure to take note of all of those and try to keep a list together and inform you of any changes in upcoming meetings that we're going to be having. Are there any other questions? If you aren't able to type in the chat, feel free to use the raise hand feature and we can unmute you. Otherwise, please feel free to email Layla at the email address on the screen.
And to the last question in the chat about having any say in these changes. So we are encouraging the public to get involved. And feel free to email me any questions or concerns you have, and then provide public comment on the drafts that we do have as well.
Great, well, Layla and I and Ryan will all be around. Oh, here's another question. Again, I'm not really sure that we're equipped to answer anything specific at this point. So we can maybe take that and then get back to you via email if you can provide your email address. Here's another question. In the TOD rail buffer areas, do you anticipate that some of the property owners will be offered money for their properties as their use changes? I don't believe that we are able to answer that question at this point. Looking at options for these areas, we're looking at both carrots and sticks. So we're looking at trying to incentivize the development that we would like to see in those areas, while also trying to restrict development that we would rather not see. For example, outdoor storage. That's not something that we would be wanting to see in the transit-oriented development areas. So that's just one example. I can't tell you at this point what effect that is going to have on property values. And then another question about future public meetings, whether they'll be in person. At this point, we're continuing to have public meetings via Zoom. Our county commissioners and planning commission are back in person. So those meetings, the study sessions and the public hearings will both be in person, provided that nothing else changes. So we had a question about outdoor storage. Outdoor storage can take a variety of different forms. Primarily, the outdoor storage that we see are like the RV boat storage. There's also outdoor storage associated with businesses, and we do restrict that already. As Layla was saying, our I-1 zone district, we recently made changes in the past couple of years to restrict that. We're looking at additional changes to the I-2 and I-3 zone districts. We do have a lot of outdoor storage in Adams County, and that's something that we're trying to evaluate. It's certainly appropriate in some areas, but maybe not everywhere. And so that's something that we're taking a look at pretty closely here.
And the changes coming to the industrial areas with outdoor storage. So we would be reducing the use by right allowances and making more of that a conditional use permit. So you would have to apply for that formal land use application and get approval from the Board of County Commissioners and ensure that that use is compliant with the surrounding area and the comprehensive plan and then the applicable sub-area plans as well. So I do see there's another question about the large concrete manufacturing facility along the rail line on Welby Road and if that will change. So uses that do have zoning entitlement, the overlays will not affect them. However, if they do expand or change the use, then they will have to be in compliance with the overlays. So within the TOD areas, concrete manufacturing is not necessarily compliant with that vision. So that most likely could be affected by the overlay if they do expand or change their use in the future.
All right, are there any other questions that we can help answer? Otherwise, we're gonna just take a pause. We'll be sitting here and we can answer questions through the chat or through Layla's email address there. But we really appreciate all of you attending. And again, to Layla's point, this is really just an introduction to the concept and we don't have anything hammered out yet. We'll be releasing Redline drafts next month and posting them to the website there. We'll have another meeting with you all on July 27th. And again, we'll have another meeting on the 29th if you want to participate in both.
And there is another question there, Jen, about a multi-residential building being planned on Welby Road. I'm not sure that I'm aware of any development applications at this time for a multi-residential building on Welby Road.